The Three Body Problem is one of the best books that I read last year. In my opinion, it's one of the best sci-fi books that have been released in recent times. I loved the hard sci-fi, I loved the sense of dread, I loved the thought-provoking concepts. The series adaptation was released on Netflix recently, and I liked it. I was a little bit apprehensive about how it was going to turn out, but I think that on the whole they did a good job. Of course, they can't adapt every single scene and every single concept from the books into the Netflix series, but for the most part, I really liked it. And if you're watching this video, maybe you liked it too, and maybe you're looking for book recommendations that are similar to The Three Body Problem. That's what the video is about. So let's dive into the top 10 books that are similar to The Three Body Problem, and let's get started with number 1, Blindsight by Peter Watts. Blindsight is a science fiction story set in the year 2082, where a group of astronauts are sent to explore a comet that's sending an unidentified signal to a location within our solar system. And for fans of The Three Body Problem, whether you read the books or you watched the show, that's going to sound immediately familiar. The story is set in a future timeline where human modifications have enabled the captain and the protagonist of the story, Cixin, to crew a technologically engineered group of superhumans who are sent out to find where the signal is coming from and where the signal is going to. The book is very dark in its tone, and that's another way in which it's similar to The Three Body Problem, and it's got morally grey characters as well. The next book is Cold People by Tom Rob Smith. This book was published in 2023, and it tells the story of a very sudden alien invasion. People are just going about their regular lives. The protagonists are on vacation in Italy, I think it is, and then all of a sudden there's an invasion. There's spacecrafts in the sky, and then everyone gets a message on their phone, and the message to humanity is, you have 30 days to get to the one place on Earth where humanity will be permitted to exist. And that place and that location is Antarctica. Whoever doesn't reach Antarctica in those 30 days, they're going to be eradicated. The story follows a handful of characters as they make their way to the frozen continent, and it shows how they're forced to adapt and evolve to this new way of life in some really unexpected ways. And I'm just going to leave it there. Right, I'm not going to give any spoilers. The next book is Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This book won the Arthur C. Clarke Award in 2015. Now, this book is still on my TBR list. I keep getting comments from people who are saying, you know, if you love Three Body Problem, then you should definitely read this book as well. So I'm really excited to read it. And yeah, I'm just going to talk about the synopsis in this video and what I know about the book going in. Similar to The Three Body Problem, this is the beginning of a trilogy. So the first book is followed by Children of Ruin, and then that's followed by Children of Memory. So many of you have got me hyped to read this book, and I'm definitely going to read it. If it's not going to be this month, but it's probably going to be next month. I'm going to get this read, and it's a chunky thing, but it seems like everyone loves this book. It's just one of kind of in the same way that it seemed like everyone loved Project Hail Mary. I'm getting a similar kind of vibe from this. I never hear anyone say, nah, it wasn't really for me. In this book, humanity's last survivors have escaped the ruins of Earth, which they've left behind in order to find a new planet to call home. The last of our civilization follow a path through the stars left behind by their ancestors, and they discover a planet perfectly terraformed for human life. Unfortunately, it's not just perfect for human life. When they arrive, they find a civilization which currently inhabits the planet, which is unfriendly and unwelcoming to the humans, so they have to clash against the other violent species and compete to survive in humanity's last refuge. It sounds brilliant. The next book is Hyperion by Dan Simmons, and this is set in the year 2732, where humanity has spread out across the stars and now inhabits multiple planets. In this book, we have a federation known as the Hegemony of Man. In England, we pronounce that hegemony. It's one of those rare occasions where actually I prefer the American pronunciation, so I'm just going to use that. I do not like hegemony. It sounds like I'm saying it wrong, even though I know that's the way I'm supposed to say it. Anyway, the Hegemony of Man are able to travel great distances through portals known as Farcasters, and they're not the only civilization that exists. You've also got the Technocore, which is a civilization of AIs, and the Ousters, which are modified humans that exist in outer space. Although the Hegemony of Man control, I think it's like 200 planets, there are planets known as outback planets, which they don't have the portals or Farcasters that can be traveled to without some kind of time dilation. The story revolves around 7 people who have been chosen to take a pilgrimage to that distant planet Hyperion. This place is famous for these kind of eerie time-traveling tombs, and it's home to this terrifying creature known as the Shrike. Each of these characters have their own reason for taking this pilgrimage to Hyperion. As they journey together, they share their stories with each other and kind of theorize about why they were selected to take the journey. It's really a collection of short stories. There's a lot of emotion involved, along with the hard sci-fi as well, and it's said to be like the Canterbury Tales in space. I can neither confirm nor deny this because I've actually never read the Canterbury Tales, because I'm a bad Englishman. I think the cool part about this book is how all of the stories kind of blend together, and they're slowly giving you pieces of this huge puzzle about what's really happening on Hyperion and what is the big deal about the Shrike. Next up is Seven Eves by Neil Stevenson. This one is very similar to The Three-Body Problem in a few different ways. Once again, it's hard science fiction. It takes place after the moon begins to crumble and the Earth is in a race against time for survival. So all of the nations on Earth start to work together to come up with a plan to evacuate into space. 5,000 years later, the human race has been divided into 7 distinct races, and they decide that it's time to return home to Earth. But now Earth is, after 5 millennia, a completely alien planet, and so now humanity is returning back to Earth, and they're going to rediscover the planet of their origin. This book is really split into 3 main sections. I don't want to give too much away because I can't remember everything that's written on the back of the book, so I don't want to give any spoilers, but this is the book that mostly comes to mind when I think about the Three-Body Problem. It just feels the same. Next up, if you are already a fan of Liu Cixin and you like that kind of speculative sci-fi, then why not read another one of his books? And the one that I would recommend is Ball Lightning. In this book, the protagonist is a man called Chen, who, when he was a young boy, he witnessed his parents being incinerated by a natural phenomenon called ball lightning. And witnessing this has a traumatic impact on Chen, and it sparks his lifelong obsession with understanding the nature of ball lightning. As Chen grows up, he kind of dives deeper into the world of physics and his research into this phenomenon. He's seeking the answers to the mystery of what it is and how it works. As Chen slowly gets closer to uncovering the secrets of ball lightning, he kind of starts to collaborate with other characters who have different motivations than he has. He works with a military scientist who is obviously trying to work out how he might be able to use this as a weapon, and he also works with a female physicist who has her own kind of radical ideas about the phenomenon. As he moves forward, he's forced to confront the implications of his research of really what has become his life's mission, including the dangers of letting all of his research fall into the wrong hands. As you know, Liu Cixin likes to involve a lot of themes in his books, and I think the themes in this book are obsession, just in general, the impact of science on society, the moral responsibilities that scientists have when making new discoveries, and the quest for knowledge at any cost. The next book is Inherit the Stars by J.P. Hogan. This book was released in 1977, and it's the first book in the Giant series. For this one, I'm actually just going to read the synopsis because I think it sells the book perfectly. As soon as I read the synopsis, I remember thinking, yeah, I'm on board, and that's the reason that I read it. The man on the moon was dead. They called him Charlie. He had big eyes, abundant body hair, and fairly long nostrils. His skeletal body was found clad in a bright red spacesuit, hidden in a rocky grave. They didn't know who he was, how he got there, or what had killed him. All they knew was that his corpse was 50,000 years old, and that meant that this man had somehow lived long before he ever could have existed. You know what I mean? Because it was written in the 1970s, one of the fun things about reading this book is the predictions of how society is going to be by the author, and seeing how he hits and how he misses in his predictions. You know, off the top of my head, for example, he predicts that smoking will be banned in public places in the future. In the 1970s, this would have been like a crazy idea that you could ban smoking in public places. But he's hit the nail on the head, and he makes some other predictions about technology as well. So, you know, that's a fun element. One way that this is really similar, once again, to the three-body problem is that this is very hard science fiction. This one is just for pure science nerds. So if you like to get into the nitty-gritty of the scientific application of fiction, then you're going to really like this book. Next up is a book series that I haven't read, and I don't want you to judge me because it's mental that I haven't read these books. Can you guess? Can you guess what it is? I've got them right here. It's the Expanse series. Haven't read them. Now, a lot of you are going to say, how have you not read the Expanse series? What I want you to bear in mind is that I don't only read science fiction like some booktubers. They just focus on one genre, and that's actually better for their channel and for the algorithm. But unfortunately, I can't read like that. I read sci-fi, I read horror, I read fantasy. They're my main three genres, honestly. But also contemporary fiction. Anyway, get back to the list. Stop blabbering on. The first book in this series is Leviathan Wakes, and this is written by James S.A. Corey. This is the pseudonym for writing partners Daniel Abraham and Ty Frank, two writers that have actually worked very closely with George R.R. Martin, but they're a bit more successful in actually consistently putting out books than he is. That goes for every other writer on earth. Now, the reason that I'm including this book in the list is because, again, this is something that has such a massive reputation. A lot of you in the comment section have said you've got to read the Expanse series, and so I am going to read the Expanse series this year. By the way, if you'd like to see my reviews of these books as and when I read them, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so that you'll be notified when I read these books. They're going to be coming up pretty soon because I'm quite hungry for the Expanse. Now, from what you've all told me, the Expanse series is a sprawling space opera that spans across the solar system. It starts off as a kind of like detective noir kind of a book that then develops over time. Like most great space operas, I've been told that these books contain a lot of political intrigue, mysterious alien technology, and the kind of fragile nature of human cooperation and our kind of precarious existence within this new society. Why is it on this list? Because a lot of you said that it was like the three-body problem. That's it. That's the reason that it's on the list. And also, I needed this list to be a top 10, all right? You got to give me a break. I'm doing everything that I can. Just be nice to me. Going to read these books, and if you'd like to read them along with me, then you're welcome to. The next book on the list is Eon by Greg Bear. This story takes place in a world where Earth is on the brink of nuclear war when, seemingly out of nowhere, a 300-kilometer-long stone entered into Earth's orbit. NASA sends up explorers to go and investigate what is this strange new object, and they discover the remains of a human civilization that used to live on the stone. And as they explore, the scientists kind of ask themselves where this stone came from. How could it be possible that humans used to live on this meteor? Also, to add to the mystery, on the stone, there's these massive caverns that lead into cities and forests and lakes. I love these kind of sci-fi mysteries, you know. They kind of make me feel uneasy with these unanswered questions, the things that you don't know, and it just keeps you reading. You want to know what. That's how I constantly felt when I was reading The Three-Body Problem. Like, what's going to happen? Why is it going to happen? In my opinion, a feeling that really only sci-fi can give you is this feeling of awe mixed with anxiety and dread. And the reason that I feel like it's exclusive to sci-fi is because unlike fantasy, and I love fantasy, right? But unlike fantasy, you have a feeling that this could happen. You know, this, in our world, this could happen one day. There's never going to be wizards, unfortunately, as much as I would like that to be true. There's never going to be warlocks or gnomes or orcs or anything like that. But there really could be something out there that comes to visit us and just completely turns this world on its head. And that's what I love about hard science fiction. The next book on the list is Revelation Space by Alistair Reynolds, and in this book, humanity has traveled across the stars and settled on a new planet where 900,000 years ago, something, we don't know what, something wiped out the previous inhabitants of this planet. The strange thing is that because it was so long ago, think about 900,000 years, because it was so long ago, the intrigue that humanity has about what it was that wiped out the previous inhabitants is kind of like a curiosity rather than like a pressing issue that they have to solve. But then one day they discover this hidden city on the planet that's been perfectly preserved. And in the middle of the abandoned city is a giant statue of a stone creature with wings. This is when a scientist takes it upon himself to discover what happened to the previous inhabitants of this planet and if that danger still exists. So these are my recommendations for lovers of The Three-Body Problem, whether you watched the show or read the books. And if you liked The Last of Us, then you might like another video that I made where I talk about my book recommendations for people who love The Last of Us. If you want to see that video, you can click up here. Also, in the comment section, if you feel as though I left out any recommendations that were essential and that should have been included, then please let me know in the comment section below. Thanks so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and happy reading.